Creepypastas. They're nothing more than horror stories shared by the community itself, usually found on forums or blogs. They're often popular across many niches, but in racing games? Come on. Well, after thinking about it, I had the brilliant idea to dig up as many creepypastas as I could find involving our favorite racing games. And I was surprised by how much disturbing stuff I came across. And when I say disturbing, I'm not talking about cheating AIs or visual glitches. I mean seriously dark stuff. Whether you believe in it or not, you'll definitely remember some of these stories the next time you fire up your console. So get ready, grab your coffee and some cake, because today I'm going to tell you every one of them. Sonic Hell Riders. No one knows exactly when it began, but those who hung around the old internet forums might remember. A deleted Orkut thread, a strange screenshot on Photolog, a lost video on Videolog that vanished just weeks later. Always the same game, always the same cover, silver, unnamed, with just the word Sonic written in shaky red marker, as if someone had scribbled it in a hurry, in fear. The case became known as Sonic Hell Riders, a cursed version of the game Sonic Riders, originally released for GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, but this edition obviously was never meant to exist. It arrived in the mail for a boy in Sao Paulo with a letter inside the envelope, no sender. Just one message written in all caps: play and you will never be alone again. The boy, curious and a Sonic fan, ignored the warning. He popped the disc into the console. Everything seemed normal. Intro, music, characters, until the second loading screen. That's when everything changed. The music slowed down until it stopped, like it was being dragged into a deep well. The characters on screen froze, and when they moved again, their eyes were gone, replaced by black pixelated holes, dripping blood, but not red blood. A dark, boiling, pixelated ooze, like oil. And more disturbing, they spoke, but in reverse. Even friendly characters like Tails spoke in distorted, reversed voices, as if begging for help, or maybe revenge. When one player reversed the audio using editing software years later, the message became clear: I see you. You stole my time. Now it's mine. The game continued, but nothing made sense. The tracks were impossible to finish. The environments looped endlessly, an abandoned hospital mixed with dark corridors that never ended. At certain points, real human faces appeared on the walls, pixelated but unmistakably human, wide-eyed, mouths frozen in a silent scream. Slowly, the game began freezing the console, but when restarted, it resumed exactly where it left off, even if the disc was removed. Yes, reports claimed that even without the disc, turning on the console would boot straight into Sonic Hell Riders. At that point, strange things started happening in the boy's house. The TV turned on by itself. The radio broadcasted static at 3 a.m. His mother said she heard footsteps in the hallway, even though no one else was awake. The boy tried to get rid of the game. He buried it, smashed it, burned it. But the game always came back, sometimes under his pillow, sometimes already inside the console, and even when it was locked. A new version even appeared on his brother's memory card, even though the save was for Mario Party. Over time, the story vanished from the internet. The forum where he posted everything was deleted. The blog where he uploaded photos went offline, and months later, the boy himself disappeared. The last anyone heard, he was seen walking alone on a dirt road near his grandmother's house, repeating the same sentence: Sonic doesn't run anymore. Now, he hunts. Today, anyone who mentions Sonic Hell Riders on forums gets instantly banned, as if it's forbidden to remember, as if speaking its name brings something back. Some copies still circulate on marketplaces like Mercado Livre, disguised as Sonic Riders Test Edition. One in every 20 boots to a black screen with a message: you have been chosen. And if that happens to you, don't turn it off. It's already too late. Forbidden version of Need for Speed. You shouldn't be here. That was the message that appeared on a player's screen when he tried to run a supposed beta version of Need for Speed Carbon, downloaded from an old Russian forum, which claimed to unlock cut content from the original game. It all started with curiosity. The file was named Carbon Dev Final RC2.iso and seemed legit. It had the EA logo, a classic 2000 installer, and even some debug files. But when the game launched, something was off. The intro was silent. No music, no sound effects. Just the video of the city, in complete silence. The colors were washed out, almost like a gray filter was covering everything. In the car selection screen, only one was available, a black Audi R8, completely matte, with no reflections or detailed textures. The car was simply named 000. When the player hit start, the game froze for almost 30 seconds. Then it loaded, an unknown track. The race started in a dark, desolate environment, like a canyon, but without any lighting. No HUD, no music, no opponents in sight. The only sound was the engine, distorted, low-pitched, almost alive. Little by little, strange symbols began to flash on the canyon walls. Red runes, reversed numbers. Then a phrase appeared in the bottom corner of the screen: run while you can. When the player tried to exit the game, nothing worked. Alt plus F4, ESC, not even Task Manager. The screen went black and one final message appeared: "You shouldn't be here." When the PC eventually rebooted itself, the desktop background had changed, a static image of a burning car. In the middle of the road, a blurry human figure, motionless, staring at the player. In the following days, strange files began to appear in the game folder: log666.sys, carbonburn.mp4, and a text file called neverdelete.txt. When opened, it contained only one phrase, repeated 999 times: "They are inside." The community that investigated this build was never able to find the original link again. Some say the forum vanished completely. Others claim that those who played the version suffered hardware issues, burnt hard drives, blown PSUs, even monitors turning on by themselves at night. The most well-known video about the case mysteriously disappeared from YouTube in 2017. Some swear they still have saved copies, but no one has dared to install it since. Mario Kart Wii: The Secret Track. This story has been circulating since around 2010 on forums like Glitches Macabros and Nintendo Wii communities. It's not long, nor full of twists, but what makes it unforgettable is the silence. A silence that doesn't seem to come from the game, but from something waiting on the other side of the screen. It all started with scattered reports from players who swore they had found a strange track in Mario Kart Wii. A track not listed in the game files, not in the standard modes, not in the unlockables. Players claimed it would show up randomly, sometimes after long play sessions, hours without stopping. Other times, right after booting up the console with an old corrupted save. The track had no name. When it appeared in the menu, the selection box was blank. No image, no sound, just a black square where the circuit preview would normally be. Upon starting the race, the player would be transported to a flat, dark, deserted landscape. There was no scenery, no ambient sound, just a thick fog in the distance and an oddly reddish lighting, as if the game were trying to simulate a permanent sunset or something post-apocalyptic. Instead of the usual upbeat Mario Kart music, the soundtrack was a high-pitched, continuous noise, like radio interference. The characters appeared visibly paler. Some reported their eyes looked blank. Others swear they were staring directly at the camera even when their karts were facing forward. There was no HUD, no map, no lap counter, no position. It was impossible to win. The track had no end. Some players tried to escape the circuit using glitches or by forcing the home button. In some cases, the console simply froze. In others, the game returned to the main menu, but with one disturbing detail. The background music was distorted, playing at reduced speed and with reversed voices. An anonymous user even managed to capture footage of the track using an external recorder. The video was uploaded to YouTube, but deleted 2 days later without explanation. Re-uploads appeared in obscure forums and file-sharing sites, but over time, all were taken down or showed mysterious playback errors. Other users reported that after playing on this track, the game began behaving oddly. Character names would change by themselves. Mii's on the save file would appear with distorted faces. The Wii Remote's speaker started making a sharp click on startup, even outside of Mario Kart. And one more serious case said that upon restarting the console, the player's profile name had been replaced by a single word: run. Like any digital urban legend, Nintendo has never officially commented on the case. The game files never showed any trace of this track, not even among unused data. The most accepted theory among enthusiasts is that it's a bugged event involving leftover test code, triggered accidentally on certain discs or modded consoles. But even that doesn't explain the strange hardware behavior after the event. What we do know for sure is that the reports stopped after about 2 years, maybe from fear, maybe from forgetfulness. But if one day, while playing Mario Kart Wii, you come across a track with no name, complete silence, and a road that never ends, turn off the console. Now, because no one knows what happens if you cross the finish line, maybe because no one ever did. M. Rossi, the Ghost Driver. Every true Forza player has run into him, the mysterious AI that shows up in virtually every game in the franchise, from the earliest titles to the most recent. Name: M. Rossi, generic car, default paint job, ordinary-looking driver, but there's something strange about him, something you only notice after playing for too long and losing to him more than once. At first, no one cared. In Forza Motorsport 1, he was just another AI opponent, but the reports started to surface as early as the second game. Players noticed that Emma Rossi didn't behave like the other bots. He braked too late but still took corners perfectly. If you tried to block him, he knew. He'd dodge you with surgical precision. More than that, he seemed to remember. Several users on the old Turn 10 forums reported that after many races against Emma Rossi, he began to mimic their driving styles. If you were aggressive, so was he. If you braked early, he'd brake even earlier, as if he was learning from you, race after race. But that was just the beginning. In Forza Motorsport 3, a user named TalonRX posted a thread titled M. Rossi is following me. He said that even while playing offline, the driver kept showing up, in events where he had no reason to appear. Even in custom races where opponent names are chosen at random, M. Rossi was always there, even after console resets, even after deleting save data. At the time, most people thought it was a meme, a random glitch, but the reports increased with Forza Motorsport 4. Players claimed that after beating M. Rossi in full championships, the game would begin freezing at specific moments, always when he showed up. Others said that during loading screens, they started hearing sounds that didn't belong in the game. Heavy breathing, static mixed with muffled voices, and in one specific case, the clear sound of a heartbeat. One of the strangest stories came from a player in Mexico. He was playing Forza offline on a console with no internet connection. After defeating Rossi in a series of races and kicking him out of the AI pool using a modded save, his house suffered a blackout. When the power returned, the Xbox 360 was on, with the game open on the pause screen, showing a race with only one car on the grid, M. Rossi's, motionless, facing the camera. In the replay, his car never moved, but the race timer kept running. 12 full minutes of absolute silence. The community tried to explain it. Some say MC Rossi is just a placeholder name, a generic label used by the engine for AI drivers. Others believe he was a leftover developer test that was never removed. But darker theories exist. One suggests that MC Rossi was an experimental adaptive AI profile, first used in Forza Motorsport 1 and accidentally carried over to future titles. An AI capable of watching the player, storing patterns, and simulating real behaviors like anger and revenge. Another more disturbing theory claims that the name Rossi was used in memory of a test driver who died in an internal racing accident. The letter M has never been explained. What's certain is that Turn 10 has never commented on M. Rossi. Not to confirm him, not to deny him, not even once. Midnight Club. It's hard to tell where the game ends and the ritual begins. The story first surfaced in old forums dedicated to gaming mysteries and glitches, especially from the PlayStation 2 era. An anonymous user claimed to have discovered something no one else seemed to know. A hidden track in Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition that could only be accessed at exactly 12 a.m. According to him, the process was simple but strange. The player had to launch the game precisely at midnight, with the console's internal clock manually set to that time. Then start any race in career mode, but do not move. Just sit on the starting line for exactly 60 seconds, without pressing any button. After that time passed, the screen would flash faintly. The soundtrack would stop, and then the game would freeze for about 2 seconds. When it resumed, the car would be in a different environment, a new but unsettling map, a desert, zigzagging roads between dunes with no traffic. The sky covered in heavy clouds. The lighting seemed to come from a reddish moon, as if time itself had been paused. The author described the feeling of driving through this map as walking in circles inside a nightmare. The scenery never ended. When he tried to stop the car, the brakes wouldn't respond. When he tried to reverse, the engine simply shut off. And whenever he strayed too far from the main road, the screen would start to shake and whispers came through the speakers, even with the volume muted. At one point, according to the story, a lighthouse appeared in the distance. As he approached, a figure emerged. It stood in the middle of the road, a dark, faceless NPC with a blinking light on its chest. If the player collided with it, the game would crash. Upon rebooting, the save file would be corrupted. But the most disturbing part came after. The author claimed that the night after his first access to the secret map, his console turned on by itself around midnight. He heard the PS2 startup sound from his living room. When he went to check, the game was stuck on the loading screen, frozen on the phrase, "Get out," blinking repeatedly. He never played Midnight Club again, but in the following weeks he reported that every night at midnight, his alarm clock rang on its own, even with no alarm set. And one day, he found a printed piece of paper on the floor of his room, one he didn't remember placing there. It had just one sentence: "You won the race. But you weren't supposed to start it." Since then, other players have claimed to try replicating the ritual. Some say the map no longer appears. Others report variations like constant fog, the presence of a second car mirroring their movements, or the sound of screeching tires when no other vehicle is around. But no one has ever recorded or proven anything, and every video about it, curiously, disappears. Most Wanted, PS Vita. This is the account of a single user. With the start of vacation, I gave in to nostalgia's silent invitation. I picked up my PS Vita, which had been gathering dust since high school. I was missing a racing game in my collection, so I went to the old newsstand that still bought and resold used games. Among scratched cases, there was a Need for Speed, Most Wanted being sold for pennies. The spine showed a nearly faded stamp, S Edition, something the shop owner said he didn't recognize. First night. The cartridge ran smoothly, no crashes or glitches, until I reached Blacklist number 4 around 2:50 a.m. After crossing the finish line, the narrator fell silent, the soundtrack cut off, and the game froze with my M3 parked on screen. The home button still responded, The map would open, but everything else stayed still. 10 seconds later, total black screen. The darkness remained silent until it was broken by the low-frequency rumble of an engine, as if it came from another room. Then a frozen frame appeared. A black Charger with no plates, red headlights on, parked facing the camera. It stayed static for 3 seconds. On the fourth, it accelerated straight at me. The image exploded in a red flash, and the Vita rebooted. Back at the menu, I noticed my save was gone. I tried creating a new file. It worked, but now the internal clock read 0000, even though it was nearly 3 a.m. I played until I reached blacklist number 4 again, and at the exact same point, everything repeated. Freeze, black screen, Charger, crash. I spent the next 2 days digging through forums. No record of any S edition, no reports of a ghost Charger. I decided to test it during the day with lights on. The game ran fine for hours, but I noticed something new. Graffiti on certain urban walls written in a strange script I later found out was Sanskrit. I took a screenshot. When enlarged, the phrase roughly translated to, "Do not escape." The next night, I powered on the Vita just to confirm if the bug persisted. The game icon on the live area now showed a miniature of the Charger. I tapped it. No menu, no EA logo. Straight into a night race already in progress, but I was the only car on the track. The GPS traced a closed rectangle. No matter which way I turned, I always ended up back at the same intersection. At some point, the previously silent radio began playing audio from my screenshots. The shutter click, my own sigh recorded casually, all played in reverse. I shut it down, formatted the memory card, removed the battery. When reinserting the cartridge, the Vita startup screen flashed red with a single word, "Run." I sold the game back the next morning without asking for a refund. The shopkeeper mentioned the S edition wasn't even listed in EA's original inventory. Since then, the Vita has worked perfectly, but still keeps phantom play sessions at 0000 logged in the usage history. Sessions I never started. Forza Motorsports 6, Xbox One. The story came to life in a short thread titled Motorcurse, My Worst Defeat in Forza 6. The author, Gearshift Ghost, described himself as a recently disqualified esports athlete who still obsessively trained in Forza Motorsport 6's Rivals mode. His routine was simple. Repeat the same track, Watkins Glen, short version, until shaving off hundredths of a second on the global leaderboard. On a Friday marked as March 17th, 17, he lost the top spot to a gamertag he had never seen before, Motorcurse. A surreal time almost 2 seconds faster than the second place. Thinking it was a glitch or a cheater, he opened the record holder's replay, but the file wouldn't load and emitted a loud crackle in his headphones. Soon after, the game menu flashed white. When it returned, there was a new message in Forza's inbox, an exhibition invite titled Revanche, track to be decided. Strangely, the system showed null date and time. Curious, he accepted. Then the screen went black. No Turn 10 logos, no intro. Just his car, a blue Ford GT, positioned on the grid of a track he didn't recognize. The stands were empty, lights off, sky completely black, as if the race took place in a world without sun. The starting light appeared with the red lights in an endless countdown. When they finally turned green, the HUD disappeared. There were no rival ghosts, and yet the timer kept running. On every sector, he heard whispered phrases through the speakers, sampled from the official announcer, but extremely slowed down. They all ended the same way. Drive it like you stole your life. On the second lap, replay cameras began flickering in the corners of the screen, as if someone was forcibly changing angles. One briefly showed the Ford GT in third person, but with an empty cockpit, no driver inside. On the third lap, the asphalt became covered in red and black artifacts. The author first thought they were corrupted textures. He soon realized they were letters forming. Motorcurse, running under the wheels. Upon completing the fifth lap, the game froze on a close-up of the digital speedometer, 666 kilometers per hour, an impossible speed for the track. The Xbox did not respond to the guide button or the power button on the controller. Suddenly, a loud white noise came from the TV. The image split into gray frames. Then the screen turned green, the dashboard's standard color, but pulsing. Then the console's front light switched from white to red for a few seconds, like an inverted red ring from the previous generation. When the console shut off on its own, the player checked the outlet, still powered. He turned it on again. The Xbox booted into recovery mode, requesting an offline update. When checking USB devices, he noticed something strange. A USB drive he had never plugged in, identified as Motorcurse. Inside, a single TXT file with zeroed date and time. He opened it on his PC. It contained only the lines, "You lost, you asked, you paused, you quit, try again." Suspecting malware, he formatted the console, but the installer froze at 66%. He tried the offline update, same result. The next morning, the Xbox would no longer turn on. Red light steady, no image. Microsoft support declared the hardware corrupted and suggested a motherboard replacement. Without hope, he posted the full story to warn speedrunners. The thread was closed for alarmist content after 12 hours. The motorcurse account never appeared again on Forza 6 servers or in public stats. To this day, Rivals mode veterans swear that if you drop into a midnight lobby with no track label and the game loads without HUD, disconnect or risk seeing your console flash a red light that doesn't belong to the Xbox One generation. After all, they say motorcurse is not a player. It is the very lap time demanded of those who dare race against it. Ghost Driver. In PS2 import collector circles, Tokyo Extreme Racer 3 is remembered for its nighttime battles on the Shuto, the huge list of rivals, and the mystery surrounding Kanetsu's final racer, Death Driver. In the normal game, he appears, you defeat him, get his car, and move on. But in 2008, a 2-channel user claimed that defeating Death Driver wasn't the end. It was the trigger for a second invisible appearance, a ghost hidden in the game's code. From that post, countless reports spread across Japanese boards, later translated on Reddit, all describing the same pattern, always on legit disc copies. The first sign after beating Death Driver, saving, and turning off the console, the player's save file shows an extra counter, 3 red dots blinking next to the credit number. They don't affect the economy, but warn that something has been marked. When the save is loaded again, the night falls with a dull blue tone, an atmosphere that doesn't exist in the original palette values. The second sign, during patrol races, traffic becomes scarce. Every 5 minutes of silence, a white unmarked van appears, driving at 50 kilometers per hour in the outer lane. When you pass it, the rearview mirror briefly reflects a humanoid shadow in the passenger seat, leaning against the window, never in the driver's seat. Hours later, when entering the Shinkanjo, the music disappears. The HUD flickers and the challenge Unknown appears, but with no rival icon. The minimap shows a red dot that follows your car at a fixed distance, regardless of speed. Upon accepting, the timer starts and the enemy pointer remains invisible. Still, the advantage meter oscillates, as if someone was matched with you. If you brake, the pointer doesn't pass you, it stops behind, keeping exactly 50 meters. Players tried using code breakers to show rival IDs during the race. The slot returns 000-000-000, an impossible value. Disc dumpers say there is no texture, model, or script associated with that ID. Still, those who finished the race reported freezing during fade-out, screen frozen black for 66 seconds, and automatic return to the main menu with no victory message. After the invisible duel, the game saves a time attack ghost named IJD-346. It doesn't appear in the list but takes up space on the memory card. Manually deleting the file prevents the game from booting. The only cure is deleting the entire save, which doesn't help if you've already seen the next phenomenon. During the loading screen before any race, the kanji word art Feng encounter flashes for 1 frame. Only filming in 60 FPS can capture it. Those who managed to record it notice the writing reflects inverted on the player's car stickers during replays. The most disturbing post came from a speedrunner. He claimed that after witnessing all the symptoms, he dreamed about the game for 3 nights in a row, always driving through an empty Shuto, chased by headlights he could never catch. On the last night, just before waking up, he heard a metallic voice say, "Mada owate inai," it's not over yet. When he turned on his PS2 that afternoon, the BIOS no longer recognized the memory card. Neither that one nor any other, as if the slot was dead. Today, collectors seek TXR3 copies with the Kanetsu curse. They say fewer than 10 contaminated saves circulate on official green cards. And if you load one, the 3 red dots appear even if you never defeated Death Driver. The modding community dug through the ISO line by line and never found any reference to such an event. They concluded it would be impossible to add it without recompiling the entire disk. Well, tell me, do you also like creepypastas or horror stories? I thought about bringing this vibe to racing games and found it interesting. If you got this far, subscribe to the channel, leave ideas for other topics in the comments. I read them all. See you in the next video.